Hi, I'm Bob. I'm here to report on the North Hills School Board town hall that was conducted last night to get public input on the issue of changing the mascot. The North Hills mascot is an Indian. So their sports teams are called the North Hills Indians. And this year there was an issue when the marching band went to Disney and Disney refused to allow them to perform because of the Indian head logo on their uniforms. So the school board had already voted and agreed to change the uniforms at a cost of over $200,000. Apparently, the discussion last night was the broader issue of changing or eliminating the Indian logo altogether from the schools, from everything. And the price tag I'm hearing for that is on the order of a $500,000. First of all, the school board, I think, did a very good job in how they conducted the town hall. They asked for people not to cheer, not to boo. They wanted to give each person 2 minutes to make a statement without without any challenge, interaction, back and forth. Just present your statement. They had about 130 people sign up, but less than half, maybe a third, not even a third of the people were actually there. It was expected to go beyond 5, 6 hours if everybody had arrived. It wasn't even 2 hours. It was about an hour and 50 minutes. So it went very quickly. Of the people that spoke, the ones who wanted to remove the mascot seemed to outnumber the people who wanted to keep it, but it wasn't too lopsided. I mean, it was more than half, but not dramatically so. So I did attend with an open mind to be objective and hear all sides. So let me see if I can encapsulate the main points made on both sides. So on the side of the folks who wanted to keep the mascot, cost was clearly number one. $500,000 is not a small amount of money. People are concerned with rising school taxes in a particularly in a bad economy. They're raised issues about what other things this money could be spent on, security being one, academics, improving academics. So cost was clearly at the top of that list. Tradition, there were older folks who attended the school when it was Westview High School in the graduated in the 60s, in the 70s. And I think a general feel of an attack on the tradition. I think folks will see this as a general attack against what they see in the national media of attack against the traditions and foundations of the country. Sort of a more general left wing woke movement within the country and particularly within the school district. Or at least one actually referred to some of the school board members as woke. For the other side, I'm going to give you the things that I felt persuade me the most. So they're not necessarily the most popular, but generally I think it works. The Indian head logo with the headdress is a cartoonish representation of Native Americans. It's not accurate depiction of the local Native American tribes. The it in considering the time of when the Indian was chosen and these things were more common in the country, was more a time of ignorance towards minorities, lack of empathy, more kind of bias against, if you will, the minority. That it was a time in America where we were more tribal, and I use that as a generic kind of term where people kind of tend to go in their groups and their cliques. So one in particular comment that stuck with me was someone mentioned seeing the students dressed as the mascots. I guess they had a boy and a girl at the football games, kind of jumping around and whooping and hollering, sort of like what you might see in old Western movie depiction of the Native Americans. In general, I think that's where this use of the Native American likeness, terms like Indians, came from. Really, is pop culture. I think it came from our Western movies. It wasn't. I don't think it was based in history so much, or knowledge, or things like that. Now, on the other side, a common statement was that it was never meant to demean. It's never meant to make fun of the Native American. If anything, it was meant to honor and celebrate them. If you look at other team mascots, you have the Titans and the Spartans, and these are warriors. They signify strength and bravery and pride. So the intent behind the logo was not to make fun of anyone. Obviously, you're not saying, well, you would never make your mascot the Village Idiots. We're the fighting Village Idiots. It's not. So obviously, the intent was never to insult. It was just in the pop culture of the time. This particular depiction of Native Americans was seen as warriors, fighters, people of great pride. The good thing is that the vast majority of people did not insult the other folks. They spoke their opinion. I would say on the conservative side, the keep the low mascot side, there were some attacks against the politicians, the sitting board members. As I said, they were referred to as woke members, but never against their neighbors. I'm not a resident of that community, but I was proud. I was happy with the way they conducted themselves. There were two people in particular. They happened to be politicians or involved in politics based on their introductions. The one person, most of their talk was critical theory. Now, if I were to say this to them, I've had these discussions enough, they would say, well, there is no such thing really as critical theory. What do you mean? That's not what it is. But it's a worldview, it's a philosophy, it's a way of looking at things, and that it's just something that they've adopted, and to them, it's not something necessary to label. To them, it's just reality. It's just what they see. The reason I bring it up is because I think that it points out a problem in the discourse, because when this person said, the people that don't see it our way, the people that don't see the problem with this mascot are only doing that because of their privilege. So that's a condescending, kind of insulting way. It's a way of saying your opinions and your arguments and things don't count, because if you don't see it our way, it's a result of your privilege. So you're defective, you're deficient in some way. You don't even have a say in this matter. I felt that was bad. This is what I see on social media, particularly Twitter, is that's the majority of the way this discourse goes about. I was happy that it was a very small number. The privilege was mentioned, and the idea that the oppressed minority perspective is the truth. Everyone's experience is subjective. We're all influenced by our background, our beliefs, our history, things that have happened to us. So every individual experience is subjective. There is some truth there, but it's a fact. It doesn't matter who you are. But this person pretty much made the statement that a minority, a victim, I don't know the exact verbiage, but basically an oppressed minority perspective is truth. That's the fact. That supersedes everything else. So again, it disqualifies you if you don't. So you're supposed to just submit yourself to whatever the oppressed minority would happen to say and believe. So that, in essence, is the critical theory, Marxist view. And they may say, well, that's, that you're throwing out words that don't mean anything and they're not right. Well, if you look at the things that Marxist communist governments have done, it's really the same thing. The Cultural Revolution. I mean, they put in China millions of people into re-education. You can't see the world the way it really is because you have all this privilege, you have this wealth, and you have this power above other people. So you really can't see the oppression that you're putting people on. So they would take people's resources, take their money, take their property. They put them in work camps. The belief being at hard labor, you can change your perspective from being one of privilege to being understanding the oppressed working class. You would see the power, imbalance or the power dynamics. The other is education of the mind. So, these things are indoctrination. It's punishment. But so that's how Marxist communist governments have always been. It's oppression. And so you see that in the language of, just one particular speaker last night. So I was glad to see that that wasn't the majority of the people that spoke. There was another woman who spoke near the end who, it was hard for me to hear because there was an echo. So I was trying, it was for where I was sitting, I could hear their voice, but then I could hear the echo from the sound system. Alluded to some electives, somehow was speaking for, representing a couple of local elected officials. And this person in particular was probably the most condescending towards the other speakers. And really in an arrogant way. I mean, there was sort of a smug, smirky smile as, made the attack and looking around the room. And I would say the majority of what was spoken there was a personal attack, a condescension towards the people on the other side. So take that for what it's worth, but it just happened to me, the two speakers who were the most aligned politically, at least on the left, were, I felt, the most counterproductive, the most destructive, the most divisive. There were a couple of people on the conservative side, the right, who I happen to know are connected to politics, and I didn't get that. Again, probably the worst thing you could say that those people did was there was a lot of use of the term woke. But it wasn't directed necessarily at the audience, other speakers, their neighbors. And when it was directed at individuals, it was only the people elected, which are subject. So, okay, so this is my perspective. It's an opinion, and I will say that I'm a logical person. Okay, when we have disagreements and when we are trying to solve problems together, I believe that logic and data and facts, accurate data and real facts are the strongest tools that we have. That's what courts of law go on. That's what psychology, psychotherapy. It's always about engaging your powers of reason to counteract feelings and emotion-driven behavior. So, I went there with an open mind to listen to the logic and to listen to the cases being made. And I came away with being more persuaded by the idea of eliminating the mascot. So as a conservative, I was persuaded. If most of the speakers had been like the more political, I would not have been persuaded. Now, I would have probably left feeling like, this is an attack. This is a battle that that needs to be fought, kind of a thing. So, I felt like the intentions, the motivations, the heart of the vast majority of the speakers were good and pure. They weren't divisive. They just disagreed. I share this because I think that we're not all going to get our own way. And, changing the logo, while I think the money thing is an issue, if I were on the school board, I would I would probably be saying, look, I think we need to make the change, but I think we need to do things to try to appeal to the other side. You're not going to get them all, but maybe do a fundraiser, maybe encourage the people that are most passionate, most, you know, adamant that this is a very, this is the morally right thing to do. Encourage them to do some fundraising and put your money where your mouth is. Show some credibility by doing that. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to, speak an opinion. I mean, the other thing is be more open minded to the more conservative side of the parents, the residents, in other issues, whether it's COVID mitigation, whether it's the concerns over the curriculum. We hear a lot about indoctrination, inappropriate teaching of young children. So, show that you're not this caricature of wokeness, this stereotype that they see. Show them that you're basing your decision purely on the merits of the mascot issue and not some left wing agenda by conceding to some other points. That's what I would do if I were on the school board. I would, again, you're never going to reach them all. But if there's nothing wrong with the curriculum, I realize you open it up, you're going to create some headaches. There's going to be some people who aren't going to like what they see. But I think that more transparency, more acknowledgement, respect for the concerns of all parents is the best way to do what's right and what's best for the children, for the community, and for everyone. That's my opinion. That's my 2 cents worth. Sherry tells me not to get too preachy. I have a feeling she's going to tell me this is preachy. But I don't want to preach. So anyway, that's just my opinion. And it's not worth any more than anyone else's opinion. If I give you something to think about, great. What I would hope that it would do, though, is to model a way of approaching these issues within our communities so that we're less divisive. And, if we're going to push people away, let's push away the dividers and let's keep the uniters. And I would say most of the people, almost everyone that spoke last night, I would consider moderate uniter. I spent almost 2 hours there. I spoke with some people and I got some impressions. I learned some things. So I just wanted to share that with you for what it's worth. Thanks. Have a great day.